What happens when a man humiliates a woman in front of an entire boardroom, calls her worthless, and rips the ring right off her finger, never realizing that the silent man at the head of the table holds the keys to his entire existence? He thought he was crushing a nobody, an overweight assistant who got lucky. He had no idea he'd just made the most catastrophic mistake of his life, in front of the one man capable of erasing him from the city entirely. Stick around, because what happens next will make you rethink everything you believe about power. The slap cracked through the executive boardroom like a gunshot. Every conversation died instantly. Crystal water glasses vibrated. A fountain pen rolled across the polished walnut table before stopping beside a leather portfolio embossed with the Romano crest. Ava Mitchell stumbled backward, the force of the blow sending her shoulder crashing into the edge of the conference table. 300 pages of merger contracts exploded across the marble floor. No one moved. 27 executives, 8 international investors, 5 corporate attorneys. Every one of them remained frozen. Ryan Mercer slowly lowered his hand, his expensive watch glinting beneath the recessed lighting. He smiled, not because he had lost control, but because this humiliation had been carefully rehearsed. He looked down at Ava as she struggled to steady herself. "Look at yourself." His voice carried effortlessly across the silent room. "You actually believed someone like you could become my wife." A nervous cough escaped from somewhere near the end of the table. Ryan ignored it. "I've spent 2 years pretending." He tugged at the diamond engagement ring still resting on Ava's trembling finger, then, with deliberate cruelty, slid it off. The tiny diamond bounced twice across the marble before disappearing beneath the conference table. I was embarrassed. Every time people assumed we belonged together. Ava's breathing became shallow. She didn't reach for the ring. She couldn't. Every muscle in her body had locked. Ryan wasn't finished. "You know what the board whispers?" He laughed. "They don't see a future executive's wife. They see an overweight assistant who got lucky." His eyes swept over her body. "You're not wife material." Silence. Then he delivered the final blow. "I only stayed because I pitied you." Someone quietly whispered, "Oh God." Not because of Ryan, but because every person in that room suddenly realized something terrifying. The chairman still hadn't spoken. At the far end of the 20-foot table sat Damian Romano. He hadn't moved. He hadn't looked up. He was calmly signing the final page of a shipping contract with a black fountain pen. When he finished, he capped the pen, placed it perfectly parallel with the folder. Only then did he lift his eyes. The temperature inside the room seemed to drop. No one could explain why. Damian wasn't glaring. He wasn't angry. His face revealed absolutely nothing. Yet every executive instinctively lowered their eyes. Marcus Hale, Damian's chief of security, subtly touched the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Without waiting for instructions, he already knew what was coming. Ryan mistook the silence for weakness. He straightened his tie. "Mr. Romano, I apologize for the disruption, but personal matters should stay personal. I'll have HR assign Miss Mitchell to another department." Damian finally stood. The sound of his chair sliding across marble echoed through the room. No one breathed. He walked slowly around the table, not toward Ryan, but toward the scattered papers. He knelt. The most feared businessman in the city lowered himself onto one knee and quietly began collecting the contracts himself. Page by page, every document straightened, every corner aligned. Only when the stack was perfect did he place it gently into Ava's shaking hands. "You printed these yourself?" It wasn't a question. Ava nodded weakly. "You corrected 17 errors legal never noticed." Another nod. "You stayed until 3:21 this morning." She stared at him. "You knew?" "I know who protects my empire." A tear escaped despite her desperate effort to hold it back. Damian looked at it for only a second. Then he turned toward Ryan. There was no hatred, only absolute calm. "Repeat it." Ryan frowned. I'm sorry? The sentence. Ryan laughed nervously. I only said she isn't wife material. Damien held his gaze. Again. Ryan swallowed. Perhaps for the first time he felt something resembling fear. Still, his pride refused to bend. I said she isn't wife material. Damien nodded once. Very well. Nothing happened. No shouting. No threats. No guards. Ryan smirked. So, are we finished? Damien looked past him. Marcus. Yes, boss. Remove his name. Marcus simply nodded, pressed one finger to his earpiece, and murmured, Execute the protocol. Then he fell silent. Ryan laughed. That's it? You think mysterious code words impress me? Nobody answered. 30 seconds later, Ryan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. His private bank. He rejected the call. It rang again. Annoyed, he answered. What? The color drained from his face. What do you mean my accounts are frozen? He looked toward Damien. This is illegal. Nobody responded. The phone rang again. His own firm. Their board had unanimously voted to remove him as managing partner. Then his condominium management company, terminating his penthouse lease effective immediately. Then his country club, his private aviation service, his attorney. Each conversation lasted less than 20 seconds. Each ended exactly the same way. We're terribly sorry. We can no longer do business with you. Ryan slowly lowered the phone. This is impossible. Damien finally spoke. No, it's expensive. Ryan looked around wildly. What did you do? Damien answered without emotion. I did nothing. I simply reminded people that every privilege they gave you passed through me first. The room fell deathly silent. Ryan shook his head. You don't control banks. No, I know the men who own them. You don't control politicians. I financed 3 campaigns. You don't control the ports. I built them. Ryan's breathing grew ragged. This isn't over. Damien took one slow step closer, and for the first time, a hint of coldness appeared in his eyes. You believe Romano Global is my empire? It isn't. He looked toward the skyline beyond the glass wall. Those ships in the harbor sail because I allow them. The trucks crossing the bridges move because I permit it. The ports, the unions, the shipping insurance, the security companies, they are not my business. They are my responsibility. His voice remained almost gentle. You made one mistake. You thought she was only my assistant. A long silence followed. Then Damien delivered the sentence that every person in the room would remember for the rest of their lives. You humiliated the one woman I entrusted with the keys to an empire, and you did it in front of the men who swore loyalty to mine. Ryan's phone vibrated one final time. Access revoked. Every digital credential he owned had vanished. It was as though someone had erased him from the city. Who are you? Ryan whispered in horror. For the first time, Damien smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cruel. It was the smile of a man who had stopped pretending to be ordinary. I'm the reason this city has had peace for 22 years, and now you've mistaken my patience for weakness. Ryan Mercer disappeared from the city before sunset. Not because he wanted to, but because every door that had once opened for him suddenly refused to recognize his name. His penthouse elevator denied his fingerprint. His private driver apologized before handing back the keys. My contract has been transferred. That frightened Ryan more than any threat. Nobody was saying Damien Romano's name. They didn't need to. Meanwhile, Ava couldn't sleep. Everything she believed about Damien had shattered. She had worked beside him for 5 years. She knew how he drank his coffee, every meeting on his calendar, which investors annoyed him, which charities he secretly funded. Yet she had never known any of this. Her phone vibrated. A single message. Mr. Romano requests your presence. No address, only GPS coordinates. She hesitated, then called Marcus. Should I be worried? Marcus answered honestly. No, you should be honored. 20 minutes later, Her taxi stopped before an ordinary warehouse on the waterfront. No logo, no signs, nothing remarkable until the steel gates opened by themselves. Inside, armed men examined the taxi at checkpoint after checkpoint. The deeper she traveled, the less the place resembled a warehouse. Finally, the vehicle entered a vast underground chamber, and Ava stopped breathing. An enormous digital map covered one wall. Thousands of tiny lights blinked continuously. Cargo vessels, freight trains, truck convoys, financial transfers, port traffic. Every moving piece of the city's commercial infrastructure appeared in real time. It looked less like a business headquarters and more like a military command center. Marcus approached quietly. "Welcome to the part of Romano Global that doesn't exist." Ava looked around at the analysts monitoring enormous screens, the former military officers coordinating routes, the cybersecurity specialists tracking encrypted communications. "What is this?" Marcus smiled faintly. "This is how the city keeps functioning without realizing who's holding it together." At the far end of the room, Damien stood alone before another digital wall. Without turning, he spoke. "You finally know. I thought I worked for a corporation. You do, and this protects it." She watched shipping lanes illuminate across the ocean. "You're monitoring everything that feeds the city. Food, medicine, fuel. If chaos reaches the ports, it reaches every home." She looked at him differently. "You aren't protecting an empire. The empire is protecting the city." For the first time, a faint smile crossed his face. "Most people see power. You noticed responsibility." Marcus interrupted. "We've intercepted another encrypted transmission." The largest screen changed. A satellite image appeared. Cargo containers, a warehouse, a familiar face. Ryan Mercer, meeting someone. The image sharpened, and Ava's heartbeat stopped. Standing opposite Ryan was a man named Nicholas Kane, someone intelligence agencies had spent over a decade trying to connect to organized crime. "We can take them now," Marcus said. Damien folded his hands behind his back. "No, they're finally standing on the same chessboard. I want to know who moves next." Ava stared at him. "You've known all along." Damien nodded. "I've never been chasing Ryan. I've been waiting for Ryan to lead me to the man hiding behind him." She finally understood everything. The boardroom, the frozen accounts, the public humiliation, the surveillance. None of it had been revenge. It had been the opening move in a much larger war. And somehow, without realizing it, she had just become the most important piece on Damien Romano's board. The war officially began at 2:17 in the morning, not with gunfire, not with an explosion, but with a single cargo manifest. A young analyst inside the command center looked up. "Boss, the Horizon Star just changed destination." The room went quiet. That ship carried nearly $600 million of pharmaceutical components. Its route had never changed in 12 years. "The order came from inside our own network," Marcus said, then looked at the screen. It was authorized by Ava Mitchell. Dozens of eyes shifted toward Ava. She stared at the screen in disbelief. "I didn't." "She couldn't," Marcus said. Damien remained expressionless. "Prove it." No accusation, no anger, just certainty. Ava sat at the nearest terminal. "Give me 60 seconds." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, ignoring everything but the authentication logs and timestamps. Then she smiled. "It's fake. They copied my digital signature. But my authentication key refreshes every 37 seconds. This one refreshed after exactly 30. She looked at Damien. "Only someone who stole my credentials without understanding how I built them could make this mistake." Damien nodded. "I told you." Marcus smiled faintly. "The person we're looking for isn't smarter than Ava." He only thought he was. Across the city, Ryan Mercer sat inside a dimly lit warehouse, his suit replaced by jeans and a leather jacket. He no longer looked like an executive. He looked like a frightened man hiding from consequences. Nicholas Kane stood beside a shipping container. Unlike Damien, Kane enjoyed displaying power. Luxury watch, gold cufflinks, 10 armed guards. "You failed," Kane said. "I underestimated Ava." "No," Kane answered coldly. "You underestimated Damien." He walked toward a massive map. "People think Damien owns a corporation. They're wrong. They think he controls the city. Wrong again. If he wanted, he could stop food from entering this city within 72 hours. So why doesn't he?" Kane's smile disappeared. "Because unlike us, he believes power should be invisible." "Can we beat him?" Nicholas looked directly into his eyes. "If we make him angry enough, he'll stop behaving like Damien Romano. He'll become the man his enemies still whisper about." Back inside the command center, Marcus received another report. "Kane is moving. He'll attack the merger." Damien nodded. "He doesn't want my company. He wants my reputation." He walked toward the giant city map and pressed one button. Hundreds of interconnected lines illuminated. "This is trust. The banks trust me. The ports trust me. The unions trust me. The people who work these docks trust that every paycheck arrives on time." He looked at Ava. "If Kane proves I can't protect them, I lose everything, not money, not power, trust." Ava suddenly understood why Damien had never retaliated with violence. Fear created obedience. Trust created empires. 3 days later, the billion-dollar merger began. Representatives from 5 countries filled Romano Tower. Everything appeared perfect, exactly as Kane wanted. At precisely 10:42, every monitor inside the building suddenly went black. Emergency alarms activated. Trading systems shut down. Shipping schedules disappeared. Phones began ringing across the room. Singapore lost. Rotterdam disconnected. Hamburg, too. The banking network under attack. Someone had launched a coordinated cyber assault against every system connected to Romano Logistics. Investors erupted into panic. The stock price began falling. News channels interrupted their programming, exactly as Kane had planned. Marcus reached for his weapon. "Give the order." Damien calmly shook his head. "No. Our enemies believe we're blind." He turned toward Ava. "Are we?" She looked at the frozen screens, then at an emergency backup server, and her eyes widened. "No. They're attacking what they think controls the company." She smiled. "But not what actually does." "Show them," Damien said. Ava walked toward an old metal cabinet tucked into the corner. "I thought those servers were retired," Marcus said. "They are," Damien answered. "For everyone except us." Ava inserted a heavy brass key, then another, then placed her palm against an old biometric scanner. The cabinet unlocked, revealing an entirely independent network. No internet, no cloud, no outside connections. Everything operated through encrypted private fiber lines built years before. "I never knew this existed," Marcus said. "Only 3 people did," Damien replied. "You, me, and Ava." She activated the system. Within seconds, every shipping route reappeared, every ledger synchronized. Outside, news anchors abruptly changed their headlines. "Romano Global restores operations in under 4 minutes." Market prices recovered instantly. Kane's attack had failed, but something else appeared on Ava's monitor, a hidden transmission. "Incoming." She enlarged it. A confidential file materialized. Its title sent a chill through the room. "Romano Succession Protocol." She looked at Damien. "What is this?" For the first time since she'd met him, he hesitated. She clicked the file. One sentence appeared. "If Damien Romano dies, all control of the Romano Empire transfers to Ava Mitchell." Every person in the room stopped breathing. Ava turned toward Damien in disbelief. "You made me your successor." "No," Damien met her eyes. "I made you the only person I trust to ensure this city doesn't burn." Before anyone could speak again, every light inside the command center went out. Emergency generators failed. Darkness swallowed the room. Then a single red message illuminated every screen. "Checkmate. Nicholas Kane." Darkness held for exactly 3 seconds. Then, emergency lights flooded the room with a deep crimson glow. No alarms, no panic. More than 100 operators remained perfectly still. Ava looked around in disbelief. Marcus calmly holstered the pistol he'd instinctively drawn. They're waiting. For what? The boss. Damien stood motionless beneath the red lights. He didn't even glance at the monitors. Instead, he checked his watch. 7 seconds. 8. 9. On the 10th second, every screen returned to life. The city map reappeared. Only one screen remained red. Checkmate. Damien looked at the message, then quietly smiled. So, you finally played your queen. Marcus understood immediately. You expected this. I designed it. Ava stared at him. You let him into the system? No. I let him believe he got in. He touched the map. The city disappeared, and a far larger one emerged beneath it. International shipping lanes, private satellite feeds, encrypted banking routes, dozens of cities. This isn't the city, Ava whispered. It's the real empire, Marcus answered. What Kane hacked was a decoy. Every file, every shipment, everything he believed he stole had been manufactured specifically for him. We've been feeding him lies for 11 months. This had never been a cyber attack. It had been psychological warfare, and Kane had walked directly into it. Across the river, inside Kane's own command center, his men erupted into celebration. We're inside. We have every shipping route. But Kane frowned. Something felt wrong. Too easy. Verify the cargo movements. An analyst froze. Sir, the ships aren't moving. They're still following Romano schedules. Another voice. The banking network never disconnected. These account numbers don't exist. Every screen flickered. The Romano crest appeared, then Damien's face. A live transmission, as though he were standing in the room. Good evening, Nicholas. You've spent 11 months stealing shadows. You've never touched my empire. You wanted to know where I keep my power. He looked directly into the camera. I keep it inside people. Hundreds of photographs appeared. Warehouse managers, harbor workers, judges, bank presidents, union leaders. Beside each, one word. Loyal. You thought I built an empire with fear. No, I built it with promises I never broke. The screen shifted to another, far shorter list. 7 names marked in red. Ryan Mercer, 3 accountants, 2 shipping supervisors, a customs officer, and Nicholas Kane. You spent years placing people inside my organization, Damien said. I spent years placing people inside yours. Every light inside Kane's headquarters went out. Outside, police sirens echoed. Federal agents, port authority, financial crimes investigators. Not one agency. 6, moving simultaneously. Nicholas finally understood. Damien hadn't called the police. He had quietly handed 6 different agencies, 6 different crimes, each believing the case belonged to them. Nicholas turned toward Ryan. You brought me into his trap. Ryan stepped backward. Before he could speak, the warehouse roof exploded with blinding floodlights. Federal agents, drop your weapons! Chaos erupted. Nicholas disappeared into the smoke. Ryan ran alone, terrified. No guards, no allies, no future. Do we stop him? Marcus asked, watching the drone feed. Damien looked toward Ava. What do you think? She watched Ryan stumble through the rain-soaked docks. The man who had mocked her, humiliated her, destroyed her life. She took a long breath. If he dies, the truth dies with him. Damien smiled. Exactly the answer he expected. Bring him in. He's finally ready to tell the truth. Hours later, Ryan sat alone inside a room deep beneath the command center. No chains, no bruises, no threats, only silence. Damien entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and placed one in front of him. Why? Ryan stared at it. Damien sat opposite. Because frightened men lie. Tired men lie. But men who believe they're finally safe usually tell the truth. Ryan laughed weakly. You've already won. No, I've only removed the first piece. The real game hasn't started yet. Damien opened a thin folder. Inside, a single photograph. Ryan's expression collapsed. It showed Nicholas Kane shaking hands with a United States senator. Behind them, two international banking executives and one face Ava immediately recognized from Romano Global's own board of directors. "This was never about stealing my company," Damien said, looking at both of them. "They're trying to buy the entire city." Ryan finally broke, tears welling in his eyes. "I'll tell you everything." Damien leaned back. "I know. That's why I kept you alive." Rain washed over the city for 3 straight days. When it finally stopped, everything looked exactly the same. People hurried to work. Ships entered the harbor. Children crossed the streets holding their parents' hands. No one realized how close the city had come to falling into the hands of men who viewed it as nothing more than another asset to own. Because that was Damien Romano's greatest victory. When he won, the world never noticed a battle had been fought. 3 weeks later, Romano Global announced an emergency shareholders' assembly, covered live by every major network. Ava stood quietly behind the stage curtains in a navy blue suit tailored with understated elegance. For the first time in years, she wasn't wondering whether people were staring at her weight. She no longer cared, because she had finally learned something Ryan never understood. Confidence isn't something another person gives you. It's what remains after they fail to take it away. Elsewhere, before being escorted away to serve his sentence, Ryan was stopped by a detective. "One question. When did you realize you'd already lost?" Ryan laughed quietly. "The day Damien looked at me instead of shouting. If he'd been angry, I'd have had a chance. But he wasn't. He'd already calculated every move I was going to make. I wasn't fighting a man. I was fighting someone who'd been planning 7 moves ahead for years." The shareholders' meeting began exactly at 10. The auditorium fell silent as Damien walked onto the stage. No introduction, no applause, only respect. For 22 years, Romano Global has existed because people believed one promise. If you build honestly, if you work honestly, if you protect those beside you, we will protect you. He paused. In recent weeks, that promise was tested. Large screens illuminated with evidence. Not sensational headlines, only facts. Financial records, wire transfers, signed confessions. Then Damien surprised everyone. He closed the presentation. "I'm not here to celebrate. I'm here to introduce the person who actually saved this company." He turned toward the side entrance. "Ava." The auditorium slowly turned. Ava walked onto the stage, and hundreds of executives rose instinctively. This time, no one saw an assistant. They saw the woman who had quietly prevented the collapse of one of the world's largest empires. Damien stepped aside, giving her the center of the stage. Not because she needed permission to stand there, but because she had earned it. She took one steady breath. "I've spent years believing that if I worked hard enough, eventually someone would notice." She smiled gently. "I was wrong. People don't always notice. Sometimes they underestimate you. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes they leave. But your value has never depended on their opinion." Silence. Then applause. Not because of polished words, but because everyone recognized the truth in them. After the meeting, only Damien and Ava remained in the now empty boardroom, the very room where everything had begun. Sunlight reflected across the same marble floor where her engagement ring had once rolled away. "Do you remember what Ryan said?" Damien asked, looking out the window. "He said I wasn't wife material." Damien smiled faintly. He told the world he only knew how to measure appearances. "I measure something else. Loyalty, competence, courage, the ability to carry responsibility when nobody is watching." He reached into his briefcase and removed a slim black folder. Ava opened it, and her eyes widened. It wasn't an employment contract. It was a revised corporate charter. Across the first page, beneath Damien Romano's signature, were the words, "Chief Executive Partner." Ava Mitchell. "You built this company," she said in disbelief. He shook his head. "I built the structure. You built the trust inside it." He looked out toward the harbor. "When I was 28, an old man taught me something. Never choose the loudest person in the room. Choose the one still working after everyone else has gone home." He met her eyes. "I started watching you 5 years ago. You never knew. I watched you solve problems without asking for credit. Protect people who could never repay you. Stay loyal even when nobody thanked you. I didn't choose you because I needed an assistant. I chose you because one day I knew I'd need someone worthy of protecting everything I'd spent my life building." Tears filled Ava's eyes, not because of romance, but because for the first time in her life, someone had seen her completely. Not her appearance, not her insecurities, her character. She finally understood why Damien had never tried to rescue her from becoming stronger. He had simply refused to let the world convince her she was ordinary. She signed the charter. Damien extended his hand. She took it, not as his employee, not as someone who owed him gratitude, but as an equal, as partners. Outside the boardroom, Marcus watched through the glass for a brief moment before quietly walking away. A younger officer smiled. "Should we go in?" Marcus shook his head. "No. The city will always need a man powerful enough to protect it." He glanced back. And every powerful man eventually needs one person he trusts more than power itself. So here's what stays with me about this whole story. Ryan looked at Ava and thought he saw everything he needed to know. Her body, her status, the way she stayed quiet and worked late and never demanded credit. He measured her the way small people measure everyone, by the surface. And that was his fatal mistake, because the very qualities he mocked, the loyalty, the diligence, the willingness to carry weight without applause, were the exact qualities that made her the most valuable person in the entire empire. He saw an assistant. Damien saw a successor. The difference between those two men wasn't power. It was the ability to actually see. And there's something deeper here worth holding on to, something Ava says herself. Confidence isn't something another person hands you. It's what's left standing after someone tries to take it away and fails. For years, she waited to be noticed, waited for the world's permission to matter. And the real turning point wasn't the moment Damien revealed his empire or handed her a charter. It was the moment she stopped needing anyone's approval to know her own worth. That's a kind of power no one can freeze, revoke, or slide off your finger and kick under a table. And maybe that's the quietest, truest lesson of all. Real strength doesn't announce itself. It doesn't humiliate people in boardrooms, or flaunt gold cufflinks, or make the world fear its name. Real strength carries the weight so quietly that no one even realizes it's being held. Damien protected an entire city and preferred that it never know. That's the opposite of Ryan in every possible way. And it's why one of them ended up erased, and the other ended up seen. If this story reminded you that true worth is measured by character, loyalty, and integrity, not by appearance or status, then do me a favor and hit that like button. It honestly helps more than you know. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder that the people who underestimate them are simply the ones who can't see clearly. And if you want more stories exactly like this one, full of quiet strength, patient justice, and people who discover their true value when the world least expects it, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. And drop a comment down below and tell me which moment stayed with you the longest. Was it the boardroom, when Damien knelt to gather the papers himself? The command center, when Ava exposed the forged signature in 60 seconds? Or the very end, when she finally understood she'd been seen all along? I read every single comment, and your favorite moment just might inspire the next story I tell. So don't be shy. Let's hear it.